Hey everyone, Richard Norris here, and in today's video I want to share with you the 5 best lessons that I've learned since working with Sam Ovens at consulting.com. So I first started working with Sam in April 2018 where I joined his program Accelerator. I then advanced and moved into his next training program, which was called Up Level, and then most recently I joined another training program of his which he just launched, which was called WeTube. And since working with Sam, I've been able to accumulate over an additional £3 million in revenue, and he has had a huge impact on my life personally, and the success in my life definitely on a business level as well. So I really wanted to share with you what is it that I learned from working with Sam over the years. And it was pretty hard actually to distill the lessons that I've learned from Sam, because I've learned so many, into just 5 key ones. But for me, I chose these 5 key ones that I'm about to share with you in today's video because I think that they help you with stage 1 entrepreneurial growth. I think if I was to distill what were the top 5 lessons that I learned from Sam that had the biggest impact to move the needle up to between 0 and £5 million, up to the first 5 million, I would say that it was these lessons that I'm about to share with you in today's video, and that's the reason why I picked these. But ultimately, like I say, I've learned an absolute ton from Sam and his team at consulting.com, and it's had a very positive impact on my life, like I say, on an entrepreneurial level, on a business level, on a personal level, and of course naturally on a financial level as well. And I've been able to apply these lessons into all aspects of my life, like I say, personally and in business, and not just my coaching and consulting business. I have obviously a property investment training program that people invest in, that shows people how to invest in properties, and a mentorship program. But I also adopted these lessons and put them into my own property business as well, and it made me a better property investor for sure as well. So if you're watching this video and you're a property investor and you're interested in business, these lessons are going to be critical to you. Now, the most important thing that you need to take away from today's lessons is that unless you actually apply these to your life, then nothing will change for you. So please, I'm sharing these lessons with you for a reason, and I would absolutely love it if you were able to take these lessons and actually put them into practice in your own life, because I can promise you, if you follow these 5 lessons that I'm about to share with you, they definitely have the ability to change your life and honestly make you millions of pounds in revenue in your future endeavors as well. So with that being said, and without further ado, if you don't know who I am, my name's Richard Norris. I've grown a successful multi-million pound property portfolio, and my group of property companies does over £200,000 a month. So with all that being said, let's jump in and I'll go through the top 5 lessons that I've learned from working with Sam Ovens since 2018. The first lesson that I learned is that there is never a business problem, right? There's only a personal problem showing up in your business. And this basically stems from something that Sam talks about, which is cause and effect relationships. Everything that you do in your business starts with you. And it's really important that you take responsibility for that, because how you show up to one thing is how you show up to everything. In week 1 of my training program, I talk about this a lot, and I talk about mindset and the evolution of developing a mindset that's going to help you to basically make 7 figures within your property business and your property investment portfolio. And I think that honestly, if I'm being completely transparent with you all, that most people overlook this part. They think that they know these things, but knowing something and really understanding it at a conceptual level and applying it into your life is another thing completely, right? So don't overlook this point. It's probably the most fundamental point that was the biggest thing that moved the needle for me, right? It was the biggest needle mover in terms of the success of my business and personal life. And it's really because, number 1, it helps you to become accountable. It helps you to take responsibility for everything that happens in your life, and it stops you from being a victim. Once you understand that everything starts with you from a cause and effect relationship point of view, and you start to clean up your habits, then everything in your life just gets better, right? So for example, one of the exercises that Sam got us to do in the Accelerator program was to take a look at deeply everything in our life. And he talks about the peaks and troughs in your life, and basically things in life, they basically go up and down, right, in a cycle. You have good times and you have bad times, and it's about trying to get equanimity into your life and to balance out the highs and the lows, and basically make sure that the disparity between the highs and the lows are less and fewer. And basically the way that you can do that is you can start analyzing your life to absolutely everything. And it sounds crazy when I say this, but even right down to the cleanliness of your car, how your bedroom is looking, how tidy it is, what's your wardrobe like, is it in order, is it messy? All of these things actually have a direct impact on how your business success is. Because for example, if your wardrobe's messy, if your bedroom is messy, then obviously it's naturally telling you that actually things in your mind right now aren't as clear as they could be. because like I say, how you show up to one thing is how you show up to everything. If you've got like an untidy bedroom, an untidy car, things are messy, then it's likely that everything in your life is a little bit chaotic and out of control as well. And like how you're going to show up to your business environment will be the same as how clean your room is. For example, like when you start making those connections in your life, things just go to another level. And like I would really encourage you to start taking a look at those things and really start cleaning up your habits, because this is the number one thing that will move the top line for sure in your business, and it will start to like balance out the peaks and the troughs, and basically to help them become fewer. Because otherwise we just live life on a roller coaster, and it can feel like that sometimes. I certainly have felt in my business at times and in my personal life that life is just full of highs and lows, and it was always huge highs, huge lows. And that was because I never realized the effect of how I was personally, and really took a look at me as an individual and what was going on in my life at any given time to cause the highs, and then equally what happens in my behavior and my patterns every day that causes them to go from a complete high to a complete low. And those are the key things you have to take away. Like how you show up to one thing is how you show up to everything. And like I say, there's never a business problem, only a personal problem showing up in your life. Most people, the first thing they think of when they have a business problem, or they're not making the revenue that they want within their business and therefore not making the profits that they want, they think that there's a business problem. They immediately look into the business to try and find the solution. But honestly, majority of the time, the problem is actually you. Like you're creating that problem in the first place from a cause and effect relationship. Say for example, your staff aren't doing what you want to do, or your team's underperforming. Well, you have to take responsibility for that again, because ultimately as a leader, are you creating the best culture, the best environment for your team to grow? What is it that you could be doing that you're not doing that will make your team perform better? Those are the things you need to look at. And I think it's very easy in the early days to kind of get trapped and start blaming people within the business, like the team that you have. Classic example in your when you're setting up your property portfolio and you're doing refurbishments, most people criticize letting agents, or they criticize the builder. And ultimately, yes, that can happen, and people can do things that they need to be held responsible for. Ask yourself the question, who hired the builder? And who hired the letting agent? And it will always come back to you. And ultimately, you usually attract people into your life that are similar to you. So if you want to attract smarter people, or you want to attract better people that show up in a different way, people that are efficient, people that are laser focused, people that have super good discipline and therefore are like superstars, then you need to become a superstar first before you start attracting superstars into your life to build a superstar team within your business. So that's the biggest lesson I'm going to say, right? Take a look at yourself, own it, be responsible for it, and understand that everything in your life has a cause and effect relationship. And ultimately, how you show up to one thing is how you show up to everything. And therefore, there is never a business problem, only a personal problem showing up in your business. That's the first lesson I learned from Sam. The second lesson is like to have monk-like discipline. So you need to make sure that you're responsible and accountable for the goals that you set. And this is why, like you may have heard me in the past say this, that your habits are more important than the goals that you set. Most people don't achieve the goals that they set in business and in life because they haven't yet developed the habits that mean that the outcome is kind of guaranteed. Once you understand the habits that you need in order to create the success and the goals that you have, and you can link those two together, you will create wealth, you will create success in your life, honestly, to levels that you couldn't like fathom really. It will be beyond your wildest dreams if you get this right. It's really important to make sure that you go dark. So Sam has this saying about go dark, and it's like if something needs to get done, just go dark and shut yourself off from the whole world. And it was a hack that really worked for me. For example, like I'll turn off my phone. When I was creating like my training program and I was really thinking about like how do I make this product the best product and create the best training program for people to basically get the best returns on property and grow their property business in the best way possible, I had to go dark. I turned my phone off, I shut myself off from the world. And honestly, there were days where literally for 12 hours, it was just me in a room, nothing else around me at all. Me, my laptop, in a bedroom or in a room. And I would completely shut myself off from the world. And those habits I still deploy into my business today. When something critical needs to get done, I will just go dark. And the biggest thing that taught me was about creating like a war map, like a 30-day war planner. And this is basically every 30 days mapping out the goals that you have for that month. So let's say, for example, the goal you have over a 12-month period is to make let's just say £100,000 of extra passive income from your property portfolio. And that might mean that you need to get, I don't know, 10 more HMO properties. Well, you'd take that 12-month goal and you would distill that into 30-day cycles. And with monk-like discipline, you would create your 30-day warm up, and you would basically block out all of the days in your calendar in red that basically are days that you know you have an activity, or for example that you're not working, and then you would fit all of those other activities into the days remaining in the calendar for that 30-day cycle. So you're basically taking your goal, distilling it into 30-day goals, and then saying, okay, for those 30 days, what are the actions that I need to do? If I did these actions and committed with monk-like discipline to doing these things and getting these things done only every single day, then it would be impossible for me not to hit the goal that I have. When you can do that and you can create the self-discipline to make sure every day you show up with consistency, and whatever it is that you need to do for that day that you've mapped out on the 30-day calendar, and you do it every single day without fail, with monk-like discipline, with laser focus, you will become an absolute machine. Like honestly, you'll just become a completely new refined beast that is able to create profits in business in any environment, and you'll just be extremely efficient at getting stuff done and hitting your goals. So it's all about, distilling and making the commitment and being disciplined. And it's easy to say, okay, well, it's great to be self-disciplined, and most people will understand that discipline is important. Like anybody who's been wealthy in their life, or created wealth in their life, I should say, has amazing discipline if you look at their character traits. But knowing that and then doing it is another thing. So it's actually really difficult in the first 30 days to stick to that. And actually, as time goes on, it becomes easier and easier and easier, because you develop that muscle for discipline. And it's like going to the gym and doing reps. The more you keep lifting weights, the more your muscles get accustomed to the weight, and kind of like you don't get as sore the next day. When you first go to the gym, you haven't worked out for ages and you hit the weights, the next day you feel broken, you feel in bits. But then over time, the more consistent you are, the more weights that you lift on a daily repeatable basis, the less kind of DOMS that you get, delayed onset of muscle soreness, that feeling of pain. That feeling of pain starts to go away, and that's just because you've adapted. So you need to basically use that same analogy and apply it into your life. Create a 30-day warm-up, map out what is it I need to do every single day, and then know every day. Once you know every day for those 30 days what you need to do, and if you just look at the calendar, and it might be, for example, let's say that you want to raise £50,000 of private angel investment to grow your property business. In those 30 days, one of your tasks might be direct outreach on social media. For example, in the direct outreach might be, I don't know, adding 20 people from LinkedIn who seem like they could be a good fit, that maybe you want to start initiating a conversation with. And then you would make sure that on those days that you make sure you add 20 people to your LinkedIn profile every single day, and you send a message and you reach out. The next day maybe to follow up on the 20 people that you added, how many got accepted, and then add another 20 people, and then start doing your direct outreach and your messaging to try and initiate conversations around raising money for your business and getting them to become an investor into your projects. So an example there of how that works. That's how it works. You create the goals that you want, the outcomes that you want, and then you create the habits with monk-like discipline. You map out your 30-day war planner, and then every day, if you do those things on your calendar, when you know exactly what it is that you need to do, and you do them every day without fail, you will see that you'll consistently, 9 times out of 10, hit the goals that you have and that you want. So if you're a person watching this video and thinking, well, I always set goals, but I'm not quite where I want to be in my life right now, the first thing you need to do is look at your behavior. How are you showing up every day, right? There's never a business problem. There's only a personal problem showing up in your life. And the second thing is, how disciplined are you? Do you have the discipline? Has your character developed the discipline required to achieve the goals and aspirations that you have in your life? Because ultimately, those first two things, usually people don't have in place. Well, in fact, if you're not at the level that you want to be playing at, you definitely haven't developed the monk-like discipline of the person who has that level of self-discipline to achieve the goals that you want. And secondly, there's definitely a personal problem showing up in your business, right? Because if those things weren't there, you'd already be at the goals that you have, want, and aspire to have, right? Now, number 3 is laser focus, okay? Now, this really does link in a little bit to monk-like discipline, and I thought, well, shall I change number 3? But I thought, no, I'm going to include it, because while it dovetails off monk-like discipline, focus is probably it's my biggest strength. So I've taken lots of tests, and I recently took the Clifton 34 strength test, which tells you a breakdown of your personality traits, your strengths and your weaknesses. And the number one strength that it defined on there was laser focus. And I've always been quite a focused individual. I've always achieved quite high in life, just to be honest about that, without any arrogance attached to it. And I thought, like, okay, what has enabled me to not only be competitive and win and like do great in sport, great in weightlifting in my previous endeavors, nearly make it as a pro footballer. So what was it about me that enabled me to basically compete at those high levels, create the business success that I have right now, and I've accumulated over the years? What is it that enabled those? And monk-like discipline and laser focus are definitely 2 points that have been key and fundamental to the character that I have, that's enabled me to achieve the goals that I set on a financial basis and any goal, personal goal that I've had in my life and wanted to achieve. So laser focus is the third one. And what I found anyway from coaching people as well is that most people try and do multiple things and they never get laser focused. They have something that Sam refers to as like shiny object syndrome, and they always think that the grass is greener on the other side, but really they fail to realize that the grass is only ever greener where you choose to water it. And that's a fundamental thing that I learned from Sam is, with laser focus, you start watering your own grass every day. And when you start watering and nurturing your own grass every day, and you stop looking at what other people are doing and thinking that what they're doing is better than what you're doing because they're achieving more than you, when you stop falling into that trap and you just focus on, what do you need to do every 30 days with a warm-up calendar, with monk-like discipline, and laser focus on just the things that you need to get done to achieve the goals that you have, and you never deviate from that thing, and you just keep watering your own grass, the grass always will get greener. And that's the key. Try and eliminate focusing on multiple things. Ideally, as a property investor, and I say this to my clients, as a property investor, there's only 2 things you need to focus on. And the only 2 things you need to focus on are finding deals and raising money. They're the only 2 things you should be doing every single day. And so, for example, if I was to create a 30-day wall planner, one of my goals, like I say, would be, okay, well, if I want to raise 50,000, 100,000 or £1 million of finance, the process remains the same. The things that I need to do to raise 50, 100 and £1 million will remain the same. Therefore, one of my activities on my 30-day planner will always be probably on there as an everyday task to add new people on LinkedIn, to look for people on LinkedIn who I think could be a great fit, to initiate a conversation who maybe there's a chance that they might want to invest in future property projects that I'm delivering on, right? And then my goal will be to initiate the conversation, and the outcome of that conversation will be to get them onto a Zoom call. And then on the Zoom call in the meeting, it will be a discussion or an in-person meeting with a coffee and stuff. It will be a discussion about their goals, what they want, what's going on in their life, their personal circumstances, establishing whether we're a fit, and if there's an opportunity to invest in a project, would they like to be involved in that, and equally what interest rate I could negotiate and what finance structure I could negotiate to make the outcome a win-win for us. So that would be like a goal every day, would be to generate new appointments, to speak to new investors, to make sure that I'm always nurturing my investor pipeline. The second thing that would be on my warm-up with laser focus would be making sure that I offer on a property every other day or every day, depending on the goals that I have. So one might be like, okay, I need a search Rightmove today, and my goal today on my warm-up might be to spend 2 hours searching Rightmove in my investment area to find distressed properties for my buy-to-let investment strategy. And the goal would be to not stop that task until I've added 10 new properties every single day within my investment area that could be a great fit to go and view. And then I'd book those viewings in, and then I'd make like a day in the warm-up, in the 30-day planner, on like what days am I going to go and do my viewings. And this kind of links into the next point that I'm going to make in a second, which is all about making decisions on data, because what gets tracked gets done. So the next point I want to make is really number 4. And number 4 is making all your decisions on data. Everything you need to do in your life should be data-backed decisions. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. So I'll give you an example. A lot of people that I train who want to start a property business, who are property investors or aspiring property investors, one of the biggest things or mistakes that I see them make is that they don't make any decision on data. Like a lot of the stuff that they allude to or create as a belief often comes from emotions. Let me give an example. So you might see a client or a person in property, and they may say this to you, and I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're going to resonate with this. They may say that, oh, the market's really tough right now, I can't get a deal. And I'm going to say, hey, I totally understand, and maybe that's true. Maybe the market is a little tougher than usual. But what are you doing every day to create the deals? How many deals do you have in your pipeline? How many offers have you followed up on in the last 30 days? And I can tell you that it will never be enough. Like, they don't even know. They might say something like, oh, I think I've offered on 6 properties over the last 30 days. It'd be like 6 properties. And you're making a decision that the market is too tough right now. Every decision needs to be made on data. So for example, one of the things that I learned from Sam was that you should never make a decision until you've tracked something for 30 reps. So let's say that you're in a business and you want to sell something to somebody. So let's make this relevant to business or property investor, right? Raising finance. So if you're trying to raise finance or you're trying to sell a product, you can't make any judgments on the cycle until you've done at least 30 calls. So that would be 30 calls with new potential investors or 30 calls with prospects that could maybe become future clients to your business. You cannot make any decisions on your offer, your product, or your investment proposals if you're trying to raise finance until you've done at least 30 calls. And most people never track the data. And you can start to see now how, like, all of the points that I'm making and the previous points I've alluded to, how they all kind of dovetail each other. Because if you don't track your metrics, that's like a personal problem, which is a character trait that you don't have. Maybe you're not disciplined enough, which is point 2, or maybe you haven't got the character trait of being laser focused or analytical enough to be able to track the data. So again, it all stems from that cause and effect relationship going back to point 1 through to 4. All of these points will dovetail off each other as well. So the first thing you need to do is remember, what gets tracked gets done. You need to make all of your decisions on data. So one of the things that I've done in my businesses is honestly, I have a tracking system, and sometimes it's just in this form of a simple spreadsheet with algorithms, but every day I'm tracking and reporting and looking at the numbers. That means that every day, if I'm just looking at the numbers and I'm making all of my decisions on metrics and valuable data within my business, I can understand that cause and effect relationship much better, and I can iterate on a proprietary learning cycle and a feedback loop of more of doing what works and less of what doesn't, right? I can't go through that iterative proprietary learning cycle if I'm just making all of my decisions on emotions. Even just in the last 4 years alone, I've spoken to over 1,000 people that either want to be aspiring property investors and start a property investment business, people in business already creating some success but not the success that they want, and also people that are already existing property investors. And I can tell you, one of the biggest faults that I see is that they don't track the data. They have no raw data that they look at on a daily basis to make their decisions. So they come and say, oh, the market's too tough at the moment. You know, it's really hard to get below market value deals, yet they're not running any marketing campaigns. Or they ran a marketing campaign and they never tracked the data. They never followed up on their marketing campaign. They may have done like a direct to vendor marketing campaign, and they wrote, I don't know, let's say 30 letters, and they put 30 letters out to landlords, and nobody came back in the first week or the first 2 weeks, and they therefore think that the letter was the problem. But really, they just don't have enough data. Like, maybe they need to send 100 letters. Maybe they need to follow up with a second or third letter, you know, and they're not tracking everything. For example, the classic one that I said, that people basically make decisions and they never offer on enough properties to make that decision, right? For example, they've offered on 6 properties and they're making the decision that they can't get an offer accepted at the moment, and it's all doom and gloom, and property doesn't work, and it's difficult to get any below market value deals because they've put in 6 offers straight from Rightmove and they've tried to negotiate the price and nobody wants to negotiate because they've took 20% on the top line straight away. There's so many things in that scenario that are wrong and that I need to coach people through, but the main one is that their emotions are getting involved with the business. Again, a personal problem showing up in the business, they're making the decisions on emotion, but they're not tracking any metric to make logical, pragmatic, methodical decisions that will attribute to the outcome of the business that they want and the goals that they have. So once you start tracking things, like I always say to my clients and anybody I'm coaching, and even in my own business, we only make decisions after we've done 30 of anything, right? So we put in 30 offers in an investment area, and then we make the decision about what worked, what didn't. And we must follow up on those 30 offers as well, because I'm digressing slightly here about the metric thing, but I think that if you're a property investor, this is valuable information for you as well. Honestly, getting below market value deals happens in the follow-up. You never get your first offer accepted. Honestly, in my experience from doing this and getting below market value deals, if that's your strategy and finding distressed vendors or distressed property properties using a buy, refurbish, refinance, repeat process, then you need to get accustomed to following up on your offers. And honestly, we've tracked offers for 6 months and then got 25k off the asking price by following that offer for 6 months, because 3 in 4 deals will fall through. That's the statistics. And because I know that as a data point, as a metric, I can therefore make sure that my emotions don't get involved or in the way of my decision-making process. And I'm not saying things like, oh, property doesn't work and it's really hard to get a below market value deal when I've just put in 6 offers and not followed up. So when I ask people these questions, it's very clear where the problem is. And it's always usually that they're not making the decisions on data. They have no metrics. You should be able to track the tangible metrics on a daily basis of everything that's happened in your business, and then look at that cause and effect relationship. How many offers have I put in over the next 6 months? 4 months, 3 months? How many offers got accepted over that period? What was the ratio? Is it 1 in 30 that gets accepted? And therefore 1 in 30 in your business, you can roughly negotiate a 10% below market value deal. Is that what the metrics are? You need to know all of these things in your business. And once you understand that, you can make better decisions. The other thing that I see a lot, which is where data is so important, is like we have tracking sheets. We have all of these tracking sheets that I've created. I'm a bit of a geek. I really love making decisions on data. I'm an engineer in background. Like I did mechanical engineering for 5 years when I was doing my foundation degree in building services engineering. And it really is the data that helps me to make decisions and get the outcomes that I want and hit the goals that I want in my business. And so if you're making the decision on data and you've got spreadsheets, the spreadsheets that we use, we pull in data from Rightmove. And the first thing we do is we look at an area based on any strategy, buy to let, HMO, flips, service accommodation, whatever it may be. We have a set procedure and a set of data that we must complete, so that we can therefore find the best area and postcode for the strategy that we have. The first thing you need to do is track the metrics on, if you're happy with like a 10% return on investment, 15% or 20% return on investment, and you're doing a buy, refurbish, refinance strategy, you need to know the average price of a property in the area. You need to know what it would cash flow at 5%, 7% and 10% interest rates. And you need to know what the average rent is to be able to basically pull all of that data together and get that information. Now, most people just invest in an area without knowing the numbers, right? They think, I'm going to go and do a buy-to-let strategy for 2-bed terrace properties, and I'm going to do it in an area where I live because that's where I know. Or they've seen somebody else who's successful in property and they just copy their area because they think, well, that area worked for them, so it must work for me. And that's where they go wrong. They're not making any of their decisions logically on data, right? And they haven't even thought about the goals that they have in their individual circumstances, and like they don't even know whether the numbers will work for the strategy. And more often than not, people keep getting things wrong in property because the biggest mistake that they make is they go to an area, they have no data on the area, they start putting in offers, and then they realize they cannot achieve 20% return. And I'm like, well, the reason you can't achieve 20% in return in the area is because when we put the numbers for that specific strategy into the system, it tells you that the average return on investment in this area is only 10%. So they're going to be waiting in that area to get a deal for a long time. And they think that getting the deal below market value is the problem, but it's not. They just haven't understood the numbers, and they've gone to an area without actually knowing any data, any metrics of whether the numbers will actually work for the strategy that they're trying to deploy. So again, making your decisions on data and metrics is going to be the most fundamental thing that you do as a property investor and as an entrepreneur in general. You need to make every decision on data. You need to have systems, you need to have tracking spreadsheets, and that's the first thing I would encourage you to do if you're a property investor and you're starting out or you're looking at a new strategy. You need to have systems where you can pull in data, look at the data and work out, first and foremost, are the numbers going to work in this area for the individual goals and financial parameters that I'm setting myself for my property business. Okay. The fifth lesson that I learned from Sam and took away was, when the facts change, I change my mind. So it's really important as an entrepreneur to basically be adaptable and not be rigid. And this was really hard for me in the early days. Like I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I like routine and I like schedule. And sometimes people have even like said to me, Rich, are you sure you're not on the spectrum? Like, you're so detailed, you're so analytical, you're so focused, you're so monk-like discipline, and you track everything, and every decision that you make is on data, and there's no emotion involved in that decision. And maybe like people can mistake that for potentially just a bit of a joke to me, saying, hey, are you sure you're not on the spectrum, like type thing. And I think that the point that I realized when people say that to me, I'm like, hey, I'm definitely on the right path because I've developed these character traits, and I know it's these character traits that have enabled me to create success and will be the same character traits that further enhance the success that I have and want and aspire to have within my life. So again, I was quite rigid in the early days because I was a perfectionist, because I was so disciplined, because I was so focused, and I like routine, that I wasn't able to adapt very well. And that caused a lot of problems. And again, that links back to point one, right? There's never a business problem, only a personal problem showing up in the business. So if I'm really rigid and I haven't yet developed that character trait of becoming adaptable, then you can see that character trait would cause a nuance within the business and stop the growth. So you can see again, like I say, how all of these points dovetail and kind of enhance each other. So yeah, making sure that you're adaptable is going to be key. So when interest rates, like recently interest rates moved, right? Interest rates went up. So I changed my strategy. And because I was doing, like, say, for example, 2-bed and 3-bed terrace properties on a buy, refurbish, refinance strategy, I realized if I just rent it out to single lets at 5 and 6% interest rates, which is what they currently at today, when I was investing previously, my interest rates were around 3.5%. That strategy worked really well. But now the interest rates are around 5 and 6%, I realized I needed to be adaptable because the margins were going to be less at the 5 and 6%. And it was going to be really hard to get the cash flow that I wanted unless I reduced my loan to value significantly. And actually, I'm still in my hyper growth phase. I'm still trying to grow aggressively. So therefore, I'm trying to maximize the loan to value that I can, obviously at safe rates, and stress testing everything as well up to those 5, 7, and 10% marks to make sure I'm leveraging and scaling in a hyper growth phase responsibly. So I realized what I needed to do was adapt my strategy and maybe start doing title splits, taking a 2-bed terrace property, but rather than refurbishing it and renting it out as a single let, maybe split it into a ground floor and a first floor flat. And then I realized if I could become adaptable and basically make the yield go from, say, 6% to 9% on the asset, I could offset that rise in interest rate. Okay, so again, that's how you can be adaptable. And another thing I've done recently as well is I have a lot of HMOs in my portfolio, and some of the HMOs I decided, hey, they're professional HMOs, the market's changed a little bit, the market became saturated. I've had them for like 6 or 7 years. They perform well, but it was actually becoming more difficult to achieve product market fit because the market became saturated, and actually things started to move on in the area, right? There was infrastructure, and lots of the construction works that were happening in the northwest around Warrington area started to dissipate, and therefore there wasn't such a strong demand for HMOs on a professional basis. So what I decided to do was convert that specific property in question, and I did it onto a 5-year fixed lease with the government under with Serco, which is like a government contract and a FTSE 250 company that basically is government backed and houses asylum seekers. And I put those specific properties that were HMOs originally for professionals, I adapt with the market, and I basically moved them onto a fixed 5-year lease with Serco, and they're working really well. So again, this is how you have to be adaptable. The point is, when the facts change, I change my mind. So make sure you're adaptable and not rigid. So like I say, they're the 5 best lessons I learned from Sam. So just to recap and summarize: number 1, there is never a business problem. There's only a personal problem showing up in the business. Number 2 is monk-like discipline. You need to be extremely disciplined to achieve the goals and the outcomes that you want. Number 3, you need to make sure you have laser focus, basically get rid of noise and focus on less to achieve more. Number 4 was about making decisions on data. What gets tracked gets done. Make sure that all of the decisions that you're making in your business are data-backed decisions, not on emotion. And number 5, when the facts change, I change my mind. Okay. Now, all of these things have resulted in me creating great success within my business. Honestly, these habits and these things that I've learned from Sam have enabled me to create multi-millions of pounds within my life, and I'm continuing to grow that. And equally, from these habits that I've built into my character and the hard work that I've put in from learning from Sam over the last 5 years, recently presented an opportunity to me which I never thought I would get. It wasn't part of my plan. And the more action you take, the luckier you get, the more opportunities arise. And I recently had an opportunity to invest into Sam's new innovation, which is a learning modular system called School. And I think this is going to be proven to be a massive investment in my life, and is going to help me to create even more success. And I recently invested £100,000 into School. And for those of you who don't know what School is and anything about that, like I say, I'm going to create a future video on the YouTube channel if you're interested about why I invested into school, what school is, how that opportunity came about, and why I chose to invest £100,000 of my money into school as a diversification strategy, growing my investments and my life in property, in business, and externally with basically investing into other companies as well. That was part of my business growth strategy. So with all of that said, I hope you found this video valuable today. I hope you learned something. And equally, if you're new to my channel and you haven't subscribed, make sure that you subscribe. If you liked the content, please make sure you give me a thumbs up and hit the like button. It will really help the YouTube algorithm to get people watching more of my work, and I'd really appreciate it. And then lastly, if you haven't already, make sure that you hit the bell icon so that you can be notified of any new content that gets released on a weekly basis from me. And equally, last but not least, if you want to get access to my free training, I have created a free school group called propertyconsulting.io. It's a free community. If you just put yes in the comment section below, I will post the link to the free school group. And inside there, I'm creating a new mini course. It's going to be valuable free training. I'm literally giving everything away in there for free. And it's going to be amazing value. Honestly, I promise you, like, this is some of the most valuable information I've ever learned, that I've paid, honestly, over the years, hundreds of thousands of pounds for. And I'm going to give away that information to you in the school group for free, for the reason being that I hope that I can help have an impact on your life. And I know that not everybody can afford to work with me personally, and I totally respect that. And therefore, I want to give an opportunity to those people who can't afford to do that to have a start. And hopefully that these skills that I'm going to teach you has a massive impact on your life. And as a result of that in the future, hey, maybe there's one day that we can do business together in the future from you seeing results from the work that I'm giving you for free. And equally, if that never arises, that's also okay too. And you just take away the lessons, then I would feel equally extremely fulfilled and that I've contributed and made a difference to life on a positive level. So with that said, and without further ado, pleasure to do this video today. I hope you liked it, and I'll speak soon. See you in the next one.